Well, hello there, folks. It is January 30th, 2021, and I'm just fooling around in the backyard again tonight. Sorry about that. Had to take a sip of water. So, still got a very bright moon coming up a little later, so we're not going to be doing anything really crazy. I'm just going to be fooling around, showing you guys what I'm able to do here from the backyard. I want to get a little music going here for us. Make sure that's playing in the background. And I think everything is set now. Okay, so we got our music going. Keep you entertained so you don't have to listen to me the whole time. And I'm going to switch over to my desktop here in a second and show you guys what the plan is for tonight. I think I might need to turn that music down just a little bit. So let me switch over to my desktop. Which button do I press? Here we go. Desktop. Oh, and I keep my ugly face in there. So this is the camera that's outside in the backyard. Little baby cam so I can monitor my rig. I've only got two cables coming off. The power cable, which powers everything from the Pegasus Astro Power Block 2. And then I've got a Cat 5 cable that's running into the house. Normally, if I was in the field, I can do this wirelessly, but my little router that's creating a hotspot that's mounted on the telescope doesn't quite reach my office inside the home here. And as you can see, if I pan around, I'm not even bothering turning off my landscape lights and all that mess that we're dealing with here. I'm already in a Bortle 8 neighborhood, so it's, let's see, let me get to, what am I missing here? I'm trying to find my desktop. Here we go. So this is the desktop of the computer that's actually mounted on the telescope. And I'm going to switch over to get my ugly face off of there. How about that? There we go. So now you can see this is the toolbar for the mini nuke that's mounted on the telescope. And then this is the toolbar that's actually on my telescope here. And right now I've got the telescope. If I load up SharpCap here, I've already done a polar alignment and a 2-star alignment here. So everything looks pretty good. And thanks, Mitch, for the good luck wish there. And so we're looking at a star in the constellation Aries called Hamal, H-A-M-A-L. And nothing really too interesting about this star. I'm looking at my time here. So it's 6:33 p.m. The one thing that is kind of interesting about this star, though, is later in just a little while, at about 6:47 local time, actually, right at about 6:47, we should get a glimpse of the X-37b pass through the frame. Now, it's just going to look like a satellite moving. It's just going to be a dot of light. But the cool thing is I've never seen this thing before. So this is, I mean, I've heard about it and I've read about it. This is the Boeing X-37. It's a top secret Department of Defense It's like an unmanned space shuttle, is really what it is. And it's interesting because when I load up, let me minimize this. When I load up Stellarium doesn't show it. It's kind of funny because Stellarium, if I zoom out a little bit here, we'll probably see other satellites moving across the frame. There's a Starlink there. There's a Starlink going up there. There's a Starlink there. Starlink everywhere. There's another Starlink over here. As you can see, you know, the skies are getting crowded, but this X-37b is not in the database for Stellarium, and I don't know if that's something that I can change in the settings. I'm not going to bother with it tonight because I'm not too worried about it. I do know from looking at this Heavens Above information here that it should come almost touching the star Hamal. And so when we go back to my frame, and I zoom into Hamal, the star here, and I put in my field of view of my camera and my telescope setup here. So it looks like it's going to disappear right around the star. It's going to pass into the shadow of the Earth. So that should be pretty interesting to see if we are able to spot it. We'll obviously be looking at a live image that's updating every 1 second. So however far the satellite moves in 1 second, it'll make a streak, and then another streak, and then another streak until it disappears. So that's kind of cool. And I've got another satellite that's a Cosmos, I think it's 1408. We'll look at it right after because it's going to actually pass right by Mars. And Stellarium does show 1408, Cosmos 1408. So I can show you the simulation of what that looks like before it actually happens. So what we're going to, and they're only a couple of minutes apart, but fortunately where I'm at, here's Hamal here. And if I zoom out just a touch, you can see that Mars is right here. So the telescope's not going to have very far to go to get over from here over to Mars. So that should be a pretty interesting interesting stuff going on here. It is 6:37, and this X37B is going to pass at 1847 is about where it ends, and it's going to fade out right after it passes Hamal, the large star that's there in the center of the app. You can see how close it's going to be to Mars, but that would be out of the field of view if I was centered on Mars right now. But we will get to Mars. I'm going to give it probably till about 1847-30. Sometimes the timing, I've noticed on Heavens Above, is off by not much, 10-15 seconds at the most. And then we will move on to Mars and try to catch Cosmos 1408. This is going to be a fairly bright satellite. Should be very, very easy to pick up. And it's going to be at about magnitude 2.6 whenever it passes Mars. So that should be pretty cool. And I did a little research on that. This is Cosmos 1408. This is a military spy satellite, I'm sure, surveillance and other military, that was launched in September of 1982. So pretty cool that we can not only see some of these satellites, but we can actually track them and identify them. So we're going to get back over here to, where are we at here? Time-wise, we're at 6:38. I tell you, time goes so slow whenever you're waiting for that last minute and waiting for things to happen. I'm going to check my guiding here and see how guiding is doing tonight. Horribly. Ugh, I don't even want to show that. I'll clear that out. Not so much of a problem for what we're doing tonight. I do want to kind of keep an eye on this graph for a moment here and see which axis is causing my problems. All right, we're going to get back over to I'm going to call up the exact time on my phone here with a hour, minute, second. I think I have an atomic clock here somewhere. I do. All right, so we have about 7.5 minutes to go before we hopefully see the satellite. I don't know, I was showing you this chart here, and you can see this is the track of the X37B here, and then this is Hamal. This is the bright star that is right in the center of our frame here. So I don't know really, because of the rotation of the camera sensor, I have no idea which direction it's going to come from, or if it's going to be slightly out of the field of view of our view here, but we'll see. We'll learn together. not much excitement going on right now. I do now that it's 6:40. So I know I've got at least 6 minutes. I'm going to see if I can do a quick autofocus here because I did not actually check focus. Make sure I'm on my luminance filter. I am. I'll do a quick autofocus, or not really autofocus, but focus with. I think we want to use maybe that star there. I should be able to get this done in plenty of time. So this is the full width half maximum autofocus feature if you have an autofocuser on your scope, and it will create a V curve here. And once I can tell that it's obviously going out in the wrong direction here several times, I will stop it, like right now, and I'm going to turn it back in the other direction, and we'll see the star get smaller during each exposure, and then it'll start getting larger again, and you'll see the graph at the bottom of the screen here will start creating a curve, like they call it a V curve, but it's more of a U shape, and the lowest point in the curve is the best focus. And so as of right now, it's right there where it's at, or where it just was. Nope, got a little bit better here. So we were out of focus because this was my initial focus point right here, and we can see that it's getting better and better. The lower it goes, the better the focus is. And once it starts curving upwards in the upwards direction, you can stop it and then just tell it to go to the best position, and you will have your best focus for that particular filter in this particular time of night. You can see it's curved up, starting to curve up now. And so what I will do now is I will stop it, and I will tell it to go to the best position. So the best position is going to be somewhere right in here, and just do that. You'll see the graph, the current position. It'll pass it, and then it will slowly go back to it, and it will stop at the best focus point automatically, auto-magically, right there. All right, it's 42:41, 18:42:41 right now. Camera's in focus. We can turn the focus assistant off and go back to our full frame view of the sensor, making sure we are showing the full sensor. Getting exciting, folks. It's exciting for a nerd. If you're interested in seeing the X-37 pass by, that's this guy right here. It's pretty cool looking. It's an unmanned shuttle-like thing that they've launched several times, is my understanding. So that's what we're going to be looking at. Yeah, if you just do a Wikipedia search for the Boeing X-37, you'll find out some information about it. The government doesn't, and Boeing and NASA, nobody really gives any information about this guy, but of course it's tracked by everybody. But it is, you know, a super secret. No telling what they've got on board this thing. It could be telescopes spying down on us, spying down on Russia, spying down in the Middle East, wherever the action happens to be. Or it could be like a shuttle, and it could just be used to actually launch satellites. But it's my understanding, what I read about it was that it actually stayed in orbit for quite a while. So if they were just launching satellites, yeah, see right here it says, you know, it's designed to remain in orbit up to 270 days at a time. So it's kind of an interesting little, it's almost like when the what are the planes, the stealth fighter and the stealth bombers were coming out, and you know, people knew about them, but you know, nobody ever talked about it. And so hopefully we'll get a chance to see this guy here in a few minutes. It's coming up on 1845 right now. 1845 right now. So we've got about a little over 2 minutes to go, or right at 2 minutes to go until we see this guy. So if you've joined in, say hello in the YouTube chat so I know I've got viewers and I'm not just talking to myself. I think Mitch is probably, my buddy Mitch has joined in for the evening. Love to know who's out there. You don't have to ask a question, but your questions are welcome. I always worry about the music. To me, the music sounds like it's too loud, but if the music mixed with my vocal is a good level, I love hearing confirmation of that. Let's see, we are coming up on 46, so we're looking at about a 1 minute countdown now, guys, until hopefully we see the X-37B fly through as a streak in this frame. It should pass through several exposures. I don't think it's low enough or fast enough that it will go through in one single 1 second exposure. It's a pretty wide field of view here. Coming up on about 30 seconds till our pass. 30 seconds. Just be looking for a straight line. I don't know which direction it's going to come from or which direction it's headed. But if it is in the field of view, we will see it. All right, coming up on our pass time in about 5 seconds. Maybe it's going to be a dud. Hopefully it won't be. Hopefully it won't be. There it is. How about that? We caught it in 2 frames. That was the X-37B that you just saw streak through there. So pretty cool. This is the satellite, or the little miniature unmanned space plane, as they call it, an uncrewed space plane. Passed through the frame there. So, woo, that's a good sign that maybe our next 2 are going to be fairly accurate too. So I can go ahead and close the information on the X-37B here. Our next pass is going to pass right by Mars. So what I need to do now is stop my guiding for a moment and minimize that. And I need to tell the telescope to go over to Mars, and you'll see Mars scoot over here, or you'll see the telescope scoot over to Mars, and we can watch it enter the frame live. There's Mars centered up. So I'm going to do, I know for a fact that this satellite is much brighter than, it's much brighter than the X-37 that just passed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shorten my exposure just a little bit. It'll also cut down on the glare. I think I just saw a satellite. Let's see, 500 milliseconds. So this is a half-second exposure here. So that is Mars, right in the center of our frame. And we are looking at a time frame of between 49 and 50. So we're coming up on 49 here in a second. So it looks like at about 49:30, 1849:30 on the clock is when we will see Cosmos 1408 pass through our field of view. That was pretty exciting, getting a 2-frame streak of the X-37B. I didn't even think to actually record it. I should have recorded it. But oh well. I see Gordon's in the chat. Thanks, Gordon, for tuning in. We're getting ready to watch a Cosmos defense satellite, Russian defense satellite streak through our frame here. Should be coming up any time now. This is Mars that's in the center of the frame here. And I was just fooling around with Heavens Above and looking at satellite passes for the night tonight, hoping the ISS was going to pass over, and it's not. But it did show a couple of bright satellites. We just saw, I don't know if you were watching, the X-37B, which is the Defense Department space plane, pass over. And then we're looking for another satellite to pass through the frame right here, and it doesn't look like it's going to, because I think we've passed the time. But we did get a chance to see the X-37B pass through, so that was really, really cool. Let's see. I think we're past the time limit for the Cosmos rocket body. I want to give it just a few more seconds. Sometimes these predictions are off by 10 or 15 seconds, and even though we're now pushing a minute. Doesn't look like it's going to happen. Might have been just outside the field of view. If I zoom out here, we might be able to see the satellite. I'm hoping I had the right time. Let's see, what was the time? 1849, roughly 49:20, 49:30. Yeah. So we didn't get a chance to see that. It might have been just a little outside our field of view. But if I go to, there's a Starlink that's passing by over here, of course. Let's see. So I'm going to back up on Stellarium here. Okay, so I'm going backwards in time now on Stellarium, and we should see this rocket body pass through the frame here. Oh, there it went right there. So that's Cosmos 1488, and this is the framing of my camera, so we should have seen that. I don't know why we did not see that. That's kind of a bummer, but in case you're just joining, if you want to play back to about actual time of 6:47, I believe, we had the scope over on Hamal here because we had a prediction that the X-37B Defense Department space shuttle, miniature unmanned space shuttle, was going to fly through, and we did catch it, so we did see that one. Let's see, what else can we do now? All of the satellite prediction passes that I was planning on fooling around with were just those two, so I think we're kind of done with that for the night. Might as well go and start showing some deep sky objects here, what we can show in the backyard here. I'm going to start out with the Orion Nebula because everybody loves the Orion Nebula. Tell the telescope to move to it, and what's going to happen is it's going to have to do a meridian flip here, so I'll keep an eye on it. Make sure my two cables there don't get tangled up as it spins around. So we had a really bad storm here this week, and this tree here that's actually in my neighbor's yard, I don't know if you can tell, it's kind of looks a little naked here on the left, and that's because half of the tree fell into my yard, into my yard and into my pool, which is right here. Fortunately, no damage. But the good thing is that I think he's fed up with this tree. That's the second time a big chunk of it has fallen into my yard. We get along great though, so not really a problem, but I think he's going to cut this tree down. So that's going to open up my southern horizon just a little bit there, which is kind of cool. Alright, telescope has stopped moving, so we should be looking at Orion Nebula. There it is, coming in 1 second exposures, or half second exposures. Such a beautiful nebula. I never get tired of looking at this guy. So I've already focused. I'm not going to refocus even though I did a meridian flip. There goes, hey, well, we didn't get the Cosmos 1408, but we got another satellite passing through the frame there. That was probably, you know what, I wonder if we can ID that. I wonder if it shows any satellites moving through my frame right now. I don't see anything moving through in that direction. Huh. I have most of the satellites turned on in Stellarium here, so they usually show up. I don't know what that little guy was, but anyway, so we'll get back to it here. I want to make sure my gain is set properly, and I want to reset my histogram, and then I want to start a live stack. I've got to start PhD guiding here in order to do a live stack. Alright, guiding is going. It's horrible tonight. I don't know if that's seeing or if my mount is just acting up, but anyway, we'll minimize that and we will start stacking here. So these are, believe it or not, these are half-second exposures. And SharpCap is able to live stack these things. Pretty impressive that it's able to stack exposures of such short length. I do want to get in here and let's see. I don't have a dark for a half second, but I do have flats for luminance. That's loaded already. Let me get to my darks here. Let's just bump our exposure up to 10 seconds. Now we'll start to see some serious detail pop in on the Orion Nebula here. Our first exposure's coming in now. Our first 10-second exposure, I should say, that's added to there we go. Starting to get some time now. So if you look on the left-hand side of the screen here, where it says total exposure, it's 59.5. I was doing half-second exposures, so that's why we've got sort of an oddball number there. But now we have 10-second shots coming in here. Doing a little stack. Play around with a histogram and kind of lighten things up a little bit until we get some more time on this guy. Already starting to see the running man come in upside down here. But I am going to push this in a little bit so we can see a little more detail in the trapezium area here. Already starting to blow out the trapezium. Even with those half-second exposures, once they started stacking, it really started overexposing this area. I am probably going to bump up to 15 seconds. So let me change something here. I'm going to change my darks to 15 seconds. Change my exposure to 15 seconds. Now we'll start cooking with gas. So this is the Orion Nebula. Most people that have any interest in astronomy, they know where the Orion constellation is. They may not know where this nebula is, but it's pretty easy to point out. I'll go back to the planetarium program here. Everybody knows the belt of Orion, or most everybody knows how to find the belt. Well, I'm looking from my home here in Las Vegas right now, and so this is south. So if we look up, you can see that Orion is almost standing straight up. When it crosses this red line, he's standing straight up. And if you look almost directly down below the center star, about halfway the distance to Rigel, which is the bright star in his right foot, you'll see a little fuzzy patch. Looks like stars at first, but if you have something as simple as a pair of binoculars, you can look in this area and you can start to see a little bit of fuzziness, and that fuzziness is the sword hanging from Orion's belt, and it is the Orion Nebula. It's probably one of the most famous reflection nebulas in the sky here. So let's go back to our live stack here and take a peek at it. We will adjust our histogram. Let me zoom out so you guys can see this full screen. So that's the full frame of my sensor here. PhD must be dithering right now because it was dumping frames there for a second. Yeah, I think that's what was happening. You can see in the left-hand column here again. So we've got a total exposure time of 3 minutes and 29 seconds. The first, I don't know, 40 or 50 seconds was all half-second exposures. And then we switched to 10-second exposures for a couple of minutes, and now we're doing 15-second exposures. You can see the camera control here on the right-hand side. This tells us our exposure time and our camera gain. 139 is, it seems like an oddball number, but that is considered the unity gain or nominal gain for my particular camera, which is a ZWO 1600 monochrome camera. So we've got exposures just continuing to build here. We'll go to probably total time of somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes on the Orion Nebula, and then we'll get bored with it and we'll switch over to something else. We'll go find another interesting target in the sky. We do have a bright moon coming up. I didn't think to check and see what time the moon rises. I think the moon was full 2 nights ago, maybe 3 nights ago, so probably any time now I'll have the moon rising in the east. It's so amazing what, I mean, this is not cheap equipment that I've got, but it's also not extremely expensive equipment. I guess cost is relative to how much money you've got in your bank account, but the gear that I'm using right now, I can go back to the live shot of the telescope out front. So I'll just kind of go over the details of the equipment. People always ask me, well, how much did all of that cost? So first of all, I've got a Goal Zero battery down here. That set me back about $450. There are cheaper ways to go with a Marine 12-volt battery and a alligator clip connectors. I just like the cleanliness of the Goal Zero. This is the Yeti 400 model that I have, and you can see right next to it I have another external battery. The nice thing about the Yeti is that it has a port on either side of it that allows you to loop multiple batteries into it. So the battery that's inside the Yeti 400 is a 35 amp hour battery, and this is a 35 amp hour battery in this case here that's plugged into it. You can't see it because of the leg of the tripod here, but so combined cost, the Yeti itself was about $450. This was only about $100 in addition, and it doubles the capacity of the Yeti 400. And I really like it. It's clean. It's got a pure sine wave AC inverter on it. Not that I use it for astronomical purposes. I just have one 12-volt cable coming out of the Yeti. The other cable that you see here is the Cat5 cable that runs along the ground here, goes through my window, and is plugged into my desktop that I'm sitting at right now. The tripod is a Meade tripod that belonged to my, I used to have I still do have a 12-inch Schmidt Cassegrain. It was a Meade LX200 GPS model. I got rid of the fork. I deforked the 12-inch Schmidt, and I still have the scope, the optical tube, but I got rid of the fork. I was just frustrated with dealing with an Alt-Az and not being able to image, and without a wedge, and polar alignment with a wedge was a pain, and so I kind of like lost interest in the scope completely, or not so much the scope, but the mount. So I can actually attach that 12-inch optical tube now to this mount, which the mount is a Celestron CGX. It is not the CGX-L. This is the original version they came out with. It has a maximum payload capacity of about 55 pounds. I didn't mention the cost of the tripod because honestly I don't know what the tripod would cost if you were able to buy it brand new. I have seen these on astronomy markets come up occasionally, and they're, I think, in the $300 to $400 range. Brand new, I would imagine it's probably close to $1,000. The Celestron CGX mount, if I remember correctly, is about $2,000, $2,200. It's been so long. I was an early adopter of the CGX. I bought it as soon as it came out. So that's been probably 3+, maybe 4 years now. The telescope is a Explore Scientific ED127. It is not the carbon fiber model, as you can tell. It's the aluminum model. I have This telescope, brand new, I believe runs about $1,800. I was fortunate enough to pick this up secondhand from a good friend of mine who had taken incredibly good care of it. I'm not usually a big fan of secondhand gear, but I knew him and I knew how well he took care of it. So for me, it was like buying a new telescope at probably 60% of the cost of the new scope. But again, $1,800 brand new. I have a moonlight focuser with a motor on it. Trying to remember how much that cost. Wasn't cheap, but worth every penny of it. I have the 0.7x reducer that's on the back end of the focuser in front of the filter wheel. It's a 8-position ZWO filter wheel with Bader brand filters. Those were, I don't know how much they cost because they were actually given to me by a dear friend of mine. And then the camera is a ZWO 1600 mm. This is the original 1600 when it first came out. I was also an early adopter of that. I have a little guide scope on the top with a Starshoot auto guider on it. And then this conglomeration that you see here, the little white box is my wireless router, and what it does is when I'm in the field out on location, it creates a hotspot that I'm able to connect to wirelessly to connect to this black box, which is a nuke, an Intel nuke. All of the software that you're seeing here, all of this software is actually running on the computer that is mounted on the telescope. And I have a Pegasus Astro Power V2 here, which is a USB and power distribution hub of sorts. So that's the way I'm able to get away with not having any cables other than the power cable and the Cat5 cable. The reason the Cat5 cable is plugged in is because the hotspot, the connection between my backyard and my office where I'm setting, it's a little iffy. It depends on what side of the mount the telescope is pointing because it moves with the mount, obviously. So sometimes I lose connection. And also, when I'm doing a live stream like this, I can't be connected to this computer wirelessly and also connected to the internet wirelessly because this computer is not on the internet. It's on an intranet that's a hotspot that's created by the little TP-Link wireless hotspot producer there. So that's pretty much the gear. Let's get back over here and see what's going on with our image. Do a little histogram adjustment here. I'm liking it so far. My explanation of the gear took a good bit longer than I thought it would. Let's see if we can bring out a little detail. Well, that scared me. I've got Sky Safari open here, and that was a notification that some satellite is getting ready to pass over. I'll go ahead and close that so we don't get any more crazy alarms going off. So where are we here? We're on the Orion Nebula M42, if you want to look it up. This is the 42nd object in Charles Messier's catalog. We've got a total exposure time of 11 minutes and 14 seconds now. And I think I'm ready to call it quits and move on to another target. Before I bother to stop and move on, let's decide what we're going to look at. Easy target would be to just hop right up here to the Horsehead Nebula. So that would bring in the Horsehead Nebula. This red outline here is the framing of my camera sensor telescope combination. I'll take requests in the chat if anybody has a particular recommendation they want. You can see my view is kind of limited to the east here. This is actually my house that's sort of blocking our view this way. So it's gonna have to be limited to my field of view. Something else we could go to, I believe, Andromeda Galaxy is. Why am I not seeing the Andromeda Galaxy? Surely it's here somewhere. Oh, it's already well past the meridian flip. So I could do a meridian flip and get over to the Andromeda Galaxy. We could do that. No request in the chat on the YouTube channel yet, so I'm going to probably just stick around here for a few more minutes and stay with the Orion Nebula. Thanks, Gordon. Yeah, everything seems to be working good tonight. I did have another one of those weird crashes today, and I wasn't online. Well, I mean, I was on the internet, but I wasn't doing a Zoom or any other kind of meeting, so that kind of scares me. My computer did update last Tuesday, and I'm wondering if it has something to do with that darn Microsoft update that came through. But it hasn't crashed yet tonight. If it does, I will reboot and get back online as fast as I can, and we'll be back up and running. So I think I'm going to give, where are we at? We're at 13 minutes now, roughly. So I'm going to give the Orion Nebula here 15 minutes. I like to do kind of round numbers. I know 15 is not an even number, but it's a round number that I like to usually do on my short exposures when I'm just sharing my screen online on nights like tonight. The really nice thing is that doing so many short exposures really cleans up the noise. I mean, there's not a lot of noise in this image. I did of course do a dark frame, and I have a flat, and that's looking into the core of the Orion Nebula here. A lot of detail coming out, and little wispy details in the outer edges of the nebula here. This is like my favorite region here. It looks like a cloud here. Hello, Yvette. What's on the agenda tonight? Whatever you like, dear. You tell me something you want to see, and I'll happily point it out for you. I'm just playing like we were doing the other night. We're on the Orion Nebula tonight. Let me go back to a full screen view of it here, and if you're just joining us, you missed something kind of exciting. So I believe, Yvette, I believe you were on the night that the airplane passed through our frame when we were looking at the moon, and we had something. It wasn't quite as startling because I knew it was going to happen, but we had a satellite, a specific satellite, pass through our frame, and that happened at about 6:47. Once I get the broadcast ends, I will go through and I'll put a catalog in, and so you did see it. You saw the X-37 pass through. Oh, that's great. Great. Yeah, it was. It's pretty amazing. I'd love to find out some more information about that thing. How long it stays up? It says it can stay stay in orbit up to 272 days. It's unmanned, so they don't have to worry about food and water for anyone. But I'd love to know what they're doing with it. All right, so we just passed the 15-minute mark, so I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording here. And what am I going to do? I'm just going to save this. Let me do a little adjustment. I'm not too worried about these images tonight, but I always like to post something on Instagram afterwards of what I managed to capture from the backyard tonight. So, and I don't do any processing on it at all. I will export this as a PNG exactly as it is, and that is, other than the Instagram cropping into a square frame, that is what will go online later tonight whenever I'm done with the broadcast. All right, time to move on. Let's stop live stacking for a moment, and let's go to the Horsehead. It's close by. It'll be easy to get to. I've got to turn my guider off first, otherwise it will freak out whenever I tell the scope to hop over to the Horsehead Nebula. Alright, so it should be there now. And well, that was the last 15 seconds. So here's what I do. I like to crank up my gain like ridiculously high, and then that allows me to shorten my exposure down to like 1 or 2 seconds. And then I can see where things are. Now, I can't quite make out the Horsehead. Actually, yeah, I can make out the Horsehead. It's right here, and I can see the Flame Nebula right here. So this allows me to be able to, like, sort of in real time almost, make framing adjustments to my exposure. So I want to get the Flame Nebula a little further over. And I think I like that framing right there. So I will go back to my guider. I will select stars. I'm actually using a development version of PhD here, which allows the software to select multiple stars. So the box, the star that has the square on it, you'll see when I start guiding. So that's the primary star right here that the software is guiding on. But it also takes into account all of the stars that are in the green circles, and it averages it out. And what that does is that kind of helps to clear up any seeing conditions, which is turbulence in the atmosphere that might be over in this area but not over here. So if all of these stars over here don't show any turbulence and this one does, it will ignore the turbulence, and it will kind of like average it out between the multiple points. So it's kind of cool the way the latest version of PhD works. All right, we're guiding. Got to remember to reset my gain to 139, which is unity gain. You know what? I can. The Witch Nebula is so large, though. I can show part of it. I can probably show like the face. And you know what? I've got enough images of the Horsehead. So the witch head is right over here. So you know what? If I frame it right, so this is the witch head. So I'm thinking framing about right there. Let me turn my guider back off. And we will go to this point here. I've actually never imaged this object. I know where it's at, and I've seen many pictures of it. So our telescope should be moving right now. Oh, it's not. Let's see. There it goes. Now it's moving. Oh, I got to select an object in the area, I guess, to tell it to move to it. Okay, how about now? Let's go to it now. Alright, so now the telescope is pointed at it, and we can go back to our software. I'm going to crank up the gain and see maybe a like a 3-second exposure if it brings it out any. This is luminance. I probably need to, I don't know if the Witch Head is a reflection nebula or an emission nebula. Let's see who can figure that out first. I got to open up Stellarium here. If it's a reflection nebula, it should show up with the luminance filter here. But if it's an emission nebula, I might need to switch over to hydrogen alpha. So let's see. Info. Description. It is a reflection nebula, so it should show up with the luminance filter. Alright, so let's do a quick plate solve and see if it's actually pointing where it's supposed to be pointing. .05 degrees off, so it's going to make a little bump of a move and center back up here. Okay, so this is the live view with a short 3.5 second exposure, and this should be the framing. So now what I need to do is get guiding going and start doing some stacking here. Let's see, turn my guider back on, select some new stars and tell it to start going. Okay. Alright, I'm going to turn my gain back down to 139, and I'm going to set my exposure time to 15 seconds. And that should be the master flat that I've already got loaded in here, or the master dark, I should say. It should be a 15-second exposure. It is. Alright, so I'll reset that. This is really going to probably take some stacking here. I'm going to clear the stack and get a fresh stack going. Alright, so our first exposure is coming in here in about 2 seconds. We'll do a histogram stretch on it and see what comes through. Wow, I'm not seeing anything there. It might take a few stacks before anything in the witch head starts showing up. That might be an object that's just a little too faint for our light polluted moonlit skies that we've got tonight. I believe, let me see, what does it say the magnitude is on this? I still got it open here. Magnitude 10 plus. Yeah, that's going to be pretty faint. We'll give it a couple of minutes here and see if there's any sign. I am just now, that's with 60 seconds worth of 15-second exposures, I am just starting to see a little bit of a cloud shape right in here. So this is probably going to be one of those objects that's going to take a good bit of time. I don't have I'm trying to think if I don't have a dark frame for 30 seconds, or do I? I might be able to push 30 seconds on this. That would be a stretch though, but I'll give it a try. Let me see what I've got here. So let me go to my dark library. No, I skipped from 15 seconds to 60. And I know 60 is just going to be completely blown out. But you know what? I'll use the dark for 60 seconds, and then I'll just change my exposure to 30. I don't know how well that's going to... Oh, I don't know how well that's going to work, but we'll give it a shot. I think what you were looking at was the planetarium program. This is not live. This is not anything coming from my camera right here. So this is just a planetarium program that you can download to find all these different objects in the sky. As you can see, I can move it around and point wherever. So yeah, I have never photographed this image, and let's see what's going on here. Did we have a 30-second exposure pop in there? I am starting to see just a little bit of faintness. This is the live image that's coming from my camera. So I'm seeing a little bit of... that's okay. That's an easy mistake to make. It's very faint. I don't know if it's showing up on the YouTube broadcast, but can you see it almost like a U shape here in the cloud formation? And that would probably correspond to this part right here on the planetarium program. So yeah, this is the brightest part of it. This part here leading up to this, all of this stuff out here is really, really, really faint, and I don't think from the light polluted skies that I've got here that we are going to be able to pick up a whole lot of detail in this sky. I'll try. My exposure went back to 15 seconds. I want to do 30-second exposures. Let's try this 30 now. Yeah, it looks a little bit like a crescent moon there, exactly. Yeah, there's a tiny bit of detail starting to show up there. So we've got about 5 seconds or so left until our first 30-second frame comes in, and we'll see how she looks. Might be washing out the sky here. Maybe not. Okay, well, I honestly didn't expect to be able to push a 30-second exposure through the luminance filter, but it did. So that tells me to go for 60. Why not? It's going to take some. It's going to take some real exposure to bring out. This does happen to be in the darkest part of my sky, so this is sort of looking southeast from my home in Henderson, and I'm on the southeast corner of the valley, so I'm looking out. The telescope's pointing out over Boulder City right now, which doesn't have a lot of light pollution, so I might be able to get away with a 60-second exposure here. What I don't know about is where our moon is yet this evening. I don't see, looking out my front window here, I don't see any moonlight really shining. I can find out where our moon's at tonight. So let's see. Our moon, it's just now rising. So that's why I don't see any moonlight yet. It's according to the Lunar Phase app that I have. Oh, I'm gonna catch in my throat there. So this is 60 seconds, and I'm still not getting any information out of this guy, the Witch Head. I'm almost wondering if I shouldn't try the luminance filter. I mean the hydrogen alpha filter. I mean, I know it's a reflection nebula. Let me switch over to hydrogen alpha and just do one exposure here and see what happens. I'm not even going to recheck focus or anything like that. I'm just going to start it back up here with hydrogen alpha. Yeah, it's always worth trying something new. So this is now switched over to. I need to change my flat filter to hydrogen alpha. And it got darker, and I can see the crescent shape of the edge of the witch's head here a little bit better. So we'll give it a couple of minutes worth of hydrogen alpha and see if it darkens the sky. It might darken the sky and bring out that reflection cloud a little bit, but I don't know about that. I'm not giving up on it yet, girl. We'll see what we can pull out of it here. We've got about 20 seconds to go before the first full 60-second hydrogen alpha exposure on it. Coming in 2 seconds. What do we got? And it looks like no change. Not a thing, not a thing. Yeah, I've never shot this target, and I haven't really even done any research on it, so I don't know any of the details about it as far as what it's which filter is best to shoot it. I know it comes out sort of bluish color in most of the images that I've seen at it, but I don't have the patience to sit around with this guy here because I'm just not liking where it's going. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to stop that, and we're going to stop guiding, and we're going to go back to Let's see. Okay, I'll give you two choices. You've got the Andromeda Galaxy or the Horsehead Nebula. Take your pick. Roll the dice. Either one of them are in a good position in the sky right now. And once we get done with that, I can maybe look towards the north and see if there's... I am able to view some galaxies. Well, you know, the Andromeda Galaxy, M33 is the big galaxy that's in Triangulum. I can see it fairly well. Hello there. Is it Hink? Hink? Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Let's see. Where is... Yeah, let's go to Andromeda. Let's see, that's the Triangulum Galaxy. I'm getting all kind of turned around here. Here we go. All right. Off to the Andromeda Galaxy we go. So the telescope's going to have to do a meridian flip here. So I always like to kind of put the security camera up here whenever I'm doing a meridian flip, because I do have the Cat5 cable and the power cable dropping down. And okay, Sky Hiker. I think I've seen some posts of yours before. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining tonight. We're just playing around. I'm doing a little tour of what I'm able to view from my limited sky in my background, in my backyard here. As you can see, the house is kind of blocks my view to the east off in this direction. And then I've got a neighbor's big house to the south. Luckily, this tree is getting ready to come down. Half of it fell in my pool yesterday. So before the other half of it falls in my yard and actually does some damage, my neighbor is going to be taking that tree out. So, all right, so we should be on Andromeda now. So let's minimize that and go back over to, let's clear this. We'll go back to luminance filter. Might as well go ahead and change my flat back to my luminance filter and change my sub back to, or my dark, I should say. We'll change the dark over to 15 seconds. We'll do 15-second exposures on the Andromeda Galaxy here. To begin with, I want to do 1-second exposures and seriously crank up my gain to see if my framing is there, and it's not. I can see my framing is off. So here's the great thing. This is called plate solving. So for those that don't know what plate solving is, yeah, well, that's not the neighbor that has the bright spotlights. I'll see if I can turn the security camera around. Believe me, they're blasting. It's my neighbor to the north that has the spotlights. That it looks like a prison yard. It's so well lit up over there. But anyway, getting back to what we're doing here, we can see that M31, the Andromeda Galaxy, is just outside the frame here. So I'm going to do something called a plate solve. And what that does is it takes a picture. Average out my exposure here. It'll take a picture, it'll analyze it, and compare these stars like a fingerprint to an index that it has, and it will determine how far off it is. It just determined that I was 0.53 degrees off, and then it automatically makes the correction to the mount. And so there it is. It automatically centered it up. So now we can start our guiding. And we'll get guiding going here again. Clear out this horrible graph that we've got for the evening. And really, the only reason I do guiding is live stacking in SharpCap here really likes having the guiding going. You can disable that, but all right. I'll reset my gain back to Unity, which is 139. Change my exposure to 15 seconds. So many steps that you have to remember to do. Reset the histogram here, and then start live stack. Clear this, and then we've got about 10 seconds before our first stack comes in. Is our guide? Oh, I did not start our guiding. There we go. It didn't stack because I have a feature. This is something that, boy, I tell you, it stumped me one night and had me so frustrated. And I don't know if anybody uses SharpCap live stacking feature, but there is a setting in stacking here, or maybe it's in guiding. Here it is, in guiding. See where it says monitor PhD2 guiding, and it says pause stacking if guiding is lost. So what'll happen is you'll just start doing these exposures and it'll keep saying frame ignored 1, frame ignored 2, frame ignored 3, and it won't be stacking any of the exposures. And that's because I have forgotten to turn the guiding on. So it's another one of those things on the checklist that you kind of have to keep track of whenever you're using multiple programs like this. So we'll go back to our stack here, which now has built up 60 seconds worth of exposures. And you know, I always get this weird banding, horizontal banding, only on the Andromeda Galaxy, and I don't know what causes that. It's from top to bottom, very narrow bands that I don't know if they even show up on the YouTube channel. But it's so weird because it only shows up on this subject matter. It doesn't show up on anything else that I shoot. So I don't know if anybody's got a clue as to what could be the reason for that, but it's kind of not really bothersome. It's just annoying because usually if I'm actually taking images of the Andromeda Galaxy that I want to like actually keep and do something with, I'm not doing a live stack in SharpCap. I'm actually just taking individual exposures and stacking them later on in a different program. How's the music? Now that I know that I've got at least 1 or 2 viewers here tonight, maybe even 3. Wow, man, I'm like busting it up here with the crowds. Is the music too loud, or is it good mix level? I enjoy it, but to me, it sounds like it's too loud. But if it's a good mix, I'll leave it right where it's at. Yeah, let me see. You know, it's weird. It only shows the bands when I go to auto zoom. Once I zoom in to a closer shot, I don't see the bands at all. So it might just be an artifact of trying to fit the entire 4600 by 3500 pixels into this little box. So we've got, let me do a little histogram fooling around here. See, to me the banding is very, very obvious, but it's not something that all right, so I got 2 thumbs up on the music. One, yeah, I love the music too. I'm just concerned about the volume level, if it's too loud or if it's too low. And Gordon says it sounds fine to him, so I'm going to go with it and keep it right where it's at. I need to kind of make a mental note of where it's at because I actually have audio levels in the Windows Media Player app, and also in OBS, which is what is streaming, that allows me to switch between all the sources here. Although I found that as long as I just share this desktop, I can switch back and forth to different things. So let me see. I was talking about my neighbor. I don't know if the telescope is going to turn around. It's kind of... This is my house. Of course, all my indoor lights are on. You know, my wife is sitting right behind that window watching television right now. And, well, you can't see it because it's just out of the frame, but this is my neighbor's house here. And right on the other side of this is the giant spotlight. And my pool furniture is blocking the view of the other light. And in fact, I purposely set the pool chair up here so that it would block that light from directly hitting the telescope. So doesn't quite look like a prison yard, but trust me, if you walk out there, you can read a book under that light. It's so bright. All right, back around to our telescope, and we'll minimize this. So we are looking at the Andromeda Galaxy here right now, and we should be able to make out, well, we can make out this little guy right here is M32. I'll zoom in a little closer to it. This is a satellite galaxy of the Andromeda Galaxy, and we can also make out M110, which is the larger satellite galaxy, which is kind of interesting that Charles Messier apparently discovered this little small one before he discovered the larger one. I don't know what's going on with that, because, you know, this was 31, and then, oh no, yeah, it's 31. I'm guessing he cataloged 31 and 32, the little faint one here, on the same night. And then he didn't come back for a long time and discover M110. I'm guessing. I don't know how many months or years it took for him to actually create this Messier catalog. But let's go back to our image. And you can see M32 right here. And then you can see M110. And now I just answered my own question. M32 is actually brighter, even though it's physically smaller. It's brighter because M110 is a little more diffuse. It's a little more stretched out. So even though in the planetarium program they kind of appear to be equal brightness, but this one appears larger, that's not the case. So that answers my mysterious question of the night. That banding is just driving me crazy, but it does it only on this target, and every single time that I've ever used the SharpCap live stacking feature. So strange. I wonder if it has something to do with because this is usually the way it's framed up. Maybe if I had the galaxy more in this position here, it has something to do with light reflecting off of the core of the galaxy here or something. I don't know. But people are saying that they don't see it on the YouTube stream. I know it's there. It's just probably getting lost in the compression going from my computer to YouTube servers and back out to you guys. So we're at about coming up on 6 minutes and 30 seconds worth of stack using 15-second exposures here on the Andromeda Galaxy. I think I'm just going to give this about 10 minutes tonight before we move on to another target. Yvette, I could show you, let's go to our program while we wait for these to build here. So, okay, yeah, you can't see it on your end. So the Triangulum galaxy is very close, very nearby. It's fairly large. It's not quite as large as the Andromeda Galaxy, but it's got more of a spiral pattern to it. You can actually really make out the spiral shape in it because it's turned a little more face-on towards us. So that might be our next target that we go to. It's close by. You know, we're here right now. We just got to bump over to here. I think what I'm going to do, guys, since I've been going at this now for, well, we started at 6:30. It's a little more than an hour, about an hour and 15 minutes now. I'm going to take a short break. I'm going to keep streaming live here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute my mic and I'm going to crank up the music to a normal level for you guys. I need to take a potty break and I need to go grab a glass of water, and then we will get back to it. So I'll probably be gone for just a couple of minutes. Alright, I'm back. I needed that. Alright, so let me catch up. Let's see what's going on here. Okay, Vet's taking a break herself. Gordon, if you get time, let's go back to the Horsehead. I would like to see how SharpCap LiveStack does with it. Oh, you're going to be blown away with that. Sure, absolutely. I've done this target here so many times. Let's go ahead and let me do a little histogram stretch here, and I'm going to pause this now at 10 minutes and 45 seconds. Alright, save as. See, the strange thing is the banding doesn't show up when I export it as a PNG and open up the PNG file. So it's just something in the display of the Horsehead, or of the Andromeda Galaxy here. All right, so let's go to guiding. Let's stop guiding. Turn the camera back on though, so it'll be ready. And then we will go to the Horsehead. Yeah, if you've never seen the Horsehead live stacking just come to life, it's pretty cool. So here we are here. Yeah, that's good. So telescope should be moving. Do my meridian flip. Keep an eye on it with the camera here. I just like to keep an eye on those cables dragging, make sure they don't snag on the leg of the tripod or anything like that. Looking good, looking good. Alright, we'll minimize that and go back to SharpCap. I'm going to reduce my exposure time and crank up the gain. Turn live stacking off for a minute. Alright, so my framing is off just a little bit. Actually, the Horsehead's dead center. So, but what I'm going to do is I am going to move it over so I get a little bit more of the flame in there. One more bump. There we go. Alright, let's turn guiding on now so I don't forget that. Select a star and start guiding. I can minimize PhD now. I am going to change to the hydrogen alpha filter, of course. And I am going to change my exposure time, my dark, to, let's see, let's do something crazy. Let's do 2-minute exposures here. Alright, 2-minute exposures. Now, one thing I haven't done, and I'm not even going to do, is for what we're doing here tonight, is I'm not even going to check focus. It's probably off just a tiny bit. Alright, so we've got not 120 milliseconds. I want 120 seconds. There we go. Exposure is 120 seconds. Gain is set to unity. Auto stretch is reset. Our timer is counting down, so we can open up live stack again here and clear the old stack. Alright, so now we wait. We're going to do a 2-minute hydrogen alpha exposure on the Horsehead Nebula here, and we're going to do a stack. So this music that you're listening to, I don't have to give the guy a plug, but anytime I come across something that I really, really like, I have no qualms at all about giving somebody a plug. This is royalty-free music from a guy named Simon Wilkinson, and his website is thebluemask.com. Thebluemask.com, and this is called the Deep Space Ambient, and it's the entire album that I bought for like, I don't know, $50, and it's almost an hour's worth of music. What equipment did Charles Messier use? He had, well, it was mid to late 1700s. I'm sure it was probably a Newtonian reflector. I don't know what size it was. It wasn't a huge telescope, if I remember correctly, although I've been known to remember incorrectly quite a bit. But I have something in my hands that will answer that question for us. Charles Messier. He was a French astronomer, and he lived from when? From 1730 to 1817. Okay, our first exposure came in. Let's do a histogram stretch here. So this is a single 2-minute exposure here, Gordon. So we're going to have to wait another probably minute and a half here for our next exposure to come through. So the Messier catalog. I'm doing a little reading while we wait here too. I might as well read it out loud to you. I was completely 100% off. It was not a reflector. It was a 4-inch refractor telescope. And he did his observing from, looks like the roof of a hotel, the Hotel de Cluny in downtown Paris, France. Of course, you got to remember, this is late 1700s, so you didn't have to worry about street lights or light pollution of any sort, really. I mean, I would imagine that downtown Paris in 1750-ish was probably as dark as the Mojave Desert is here. Actually, I would guess that it was probably darker because of all the pollution and everything that we've spewed into the atmosphere then. But he had a 4-inch refractor, which actually really surprises me. And that explains, but that does explain too why all of the objects are visible in a small amateur telescope. And usually what we tell people to go after when they get their first telescope is to try to find, not all of the Messier objects are easy to spot, but I would say a good 60% of them are very, very easy to spot in a 4-inch telescope. The other 40% are going to require the same small telescope, but a little bit of skill. So we've got our second 2-minute exposure coming in here, Gordon, and it is stacking now. So not a whole lot of change right away. It did seem to get a little bit darker when I adjusted the histogram. I can zoom in on it so you can see a little bit of detail here. So I will get in right on show you the horse's head and the flame. And you can still see the noise because it's only got 2 images stacked so far. So it will. He cataloged 110 objects. You bet, 110. And what he was doing, at least what I read, in fact, let me look at my bookshelf here. See if I can find the book. Alright, stand by 1 second. I'm going to switch back to my camera here. So this is one of the first astronomy books that I got. Messier's Nebulae and Star Catalog, Star Clusters. Great book for learning how they look in small telescopes and how to find them. It's incredibly detailed. I mean, as you can see, it's a big book, but it's not super technical, which is why I got it. I don't know what year this book came out in print. Let me see if I can find the issue date. Might still be able to find it. Let's see. I was hoping to be able to see, usually at the beginning of the book here, it says when the book was printed. It's the second edition, so they might be on. Here we go. This book came out, first published in '68. Second edition came out in '91. So I thought I had this book before '91, but I guess I didn't, because this is the second edition. But it's a great book, and I can show you like just a typical, actually, let's see, we're looking at, the Horsehead is not a Messier object, but we were just looking at Andromeda, M31, so I can show you the M31 page in the book. And this will show you actually what his drawings look like. I mean, this is the actual drawings that he made looking through the eyepiece of the scope. Of course, they had no idea, you know, that this was a galaxy at the time. They didn't realize that this was a galaxy, and you know, our whole, you know, universe expanded with Edwin Hubble in, I believe, the early 1900s when he was able to determine that the Andromeda Galaxy was actually a galaxy all its own. Before that, everybody thought that all the stars and everything that you saw in the sky was, you know, relatively in our backyard, and it was Edwin Hubble that discovered that that nebula that we're looking at is actually an entire galaxy far, far away from us. And that expanded the universe overnight to just include tons and tons of things. And Edwin Hubble, the discoverer of that fact, is the reason why the Hubble telescope is named Hubble. Well, yeah, late 1700s, there weren't exactly cameras available, so he was drawing. That's the way everybody started out. Oh, I didn't realize I was still on camera here, so let's see. Let's go back to the desktop, because we now have 6 minutes. This is 3 2-minute exposures, Gordon. And I can already see the noise, especially in the darker areas, starting to get cleaned up here. So you're looking at 6 minutes worth of 2-minute exposures there. Yeah, this book is, you know, I'm gonna remember to go back to the screen here faster this time. But yeah, this book, if you can find it in the library or buy it or whatever, this is the book that I tell people to start out with if they're getting a telescope and want to find something besides just the moon. All right, we've got 8 minutes worth of 2-minute exposures now. Getting cleaner. Not so much more detail coming in, but it just works so marvelously with the stacking and the dithering that's happening and cleaning up the noise and starting to see these really fine wispy details here in the outer edges of the Horsehead Nebula here. So I haven't, since we're killing time here, you did find the book. Great. I'm glad that it's still available out there in the world. Definitely the book to start with. Yeah, I only own hardcovers. I don't know that all of my astronomy books are hardcover books. Never have been a big fan of paperbacks. I mean, I read some sci-fi novels and stuff that are paperbacks, and I've read a few Tom Clancy books that were paperbacks, but all of the books that I keep on my bookshelf, I like to buy the hardcovers. So, well, that's cool. That's cool. So I have another interesting little trinket to share with you, but let's see. We've got 30 seconds away from our 10-minute total time of exposure here. I've got to turn that music down. It just seems like it's a little too much, but I'll turn it up in the software that's feeding it out. So hopefully the music still sounds good for you guys, but I had to turn it down internally here in the room. All right, so there we go. So this is 10-minute exposure on the Horsehead Nebula. Let me do a little histogram stretch, and boy, let's zoom out to show the whole thing. So like I was saying, all of the detail that starts coming out in this section of the sky here, I'm almost tempted to, you know what I'm almost tempted to do? I'm almost tempted to bump our exposure time up to like 5 minutes and see how much, because there is so much detail in this part of the sky right here and also over in this area that we're missing out on with these short 2-minute exposures. Let's do that. Let's go to my dark library and change my exposure time to, do we want to go, let's see, let's go 240 seconds. All right, so this is going to be a 4-minute exposure. So we basically are going to double our exposure time from 2 minutes, our individual exposure time from 2 minutes to 4 minutes. You can only do this in the city like this with the moon coming up. You can only do this with hydrogen alpha, I believe. Well, any of the narrowband filters, but so now we have roughly 4 minutes. So I'll share a little something else with you guys. I had the pleasure, I got to go back to camera because it's an actual prop that I have to share tonight. So I had the pleasure in 1994, March of 1994. I was living in New Orleans at the time, and I was doing freelance video production, and I came across a producer. We were actually working on a show for Toyota in the Superdome, and one of the producers was a freelance producer for the Discovery Channel. And during one of our breaks, he heard me talking to one of my friends about astronomy, because that's all I talk about is astronomy. And he said, "Hey, I've got a job coming up next year." This was in like September of '93. He goes, "I've got a job coming up early next year you might be interested in." And I said, "Oh yeah, what's that?" And he said, "I am going to Russia." My ears perked up. I'm like, "Whoa, I don't know about that." He goes, "Actually, we're going to be in Russia and we're going to be in Kazakhstan because we're going for the Discovery Channel to film the launch of Norman Thagard aboard the Mir space station." And my jaw just dropped, just kind of like it is just even reliving and telling this story. And he said, "Yeah," he goes, "they've just given us permission to bring a second camera operator. And so I'm looking for a shooter," which, you know, that's the slang in video world. That's what they call us, shooters. And he goes, "Are you interested in going to Russia and going to watch the launch of an American astronaut aboard the Russian space station at the time, the Mir?" This was in 90, well, it was 94, so it was before the International Space Station construction even started. And I said, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "How much do I have to pay you for this job?" He goes, "Oh no, we'll pay you." So I ended up getting, long story short, I ended up getting to go to Russia. We spent a week in Moscow and Star City is a little town that's outside of Moscow, sort of like a suburb, and it is their version of Houston, where the Johnson Space Center is, and that's where they do all the training of the astronauts. And it's a place called Star City, and we spent a week there. We got to film the astronauts, or not Norman Thagard, but the backup astronauts training in the centrifuge and doing all kinds of stuff. They actually had a true to size model of the Mir space station in the building there, made out of wood. It was just the most bizarre thing. I mean, intricate, very detailed woodworking. Anyway, getting off track here. So we spent a week there, and then we got on a airplane and we flew to Baikonur, Kazakhstan, which is their version of Cape Canaveral in Florida. and that's where they do their launches from. So we were there for a week, and we got to tour Yuri Gagarin's home, which is like a shrine, because he's, their space hero, first man in space. Actually got to have a shot of vodka in his house. It's really a bizarre story. I've got to switch back to the desktop here because I want to show you guys our first 4-minute exposure just came in. I will get back to the Russia story though, I promise. So yeah, I think it really did a lot of, you can really see the detail starting to pop now in this area right here. You can start to see, it almost looks like a cloud with rain falling here that's really starting to come out. And that doesn't show up in the short 2-minute exposures. You really got to put some time in it. So let's go back out to this. I'm going to finish telling the story and just keep it on the desktop here until I get to the prop that I got, and I'll go back to the camera. So yeah, I was impressed with, I was impressed and I wasn't impressed. We walked into one of their control rooms in Baikonur, and it looked like it was something out of the 60s. It was really kind of scary. Even 91 digital monitors and stuff weren't a thing, but our mission control looked like it was built in the 90s, in 1994. Their mission control looked like it was built in the 60s in 1994. I guess that's what I'm getting at. So it was kind of scary, but they're also of the mindset that they don't launch. They don't postpone a launch unless everything's got to be falling apart. The day that we were there for the launch, they launched. The temperature was about minus 10 degrees, and the wind was blowing at about 20 miles an hour. And I kept looking over at the producer saying, there is no way in the world these guys are going to launch in these conditions. Because at the time our shuttle, it had its issues. They knew the Challenger issue in '86 with, the O-rings freezing, and so we wouldn't launch if the temperature was below freezing. And here it is, in like minus 10, minus 15 degrees. And they also have wind restrictions with NASA, but not these guys in Russia. They light them up no matter what. And so one of the other interesting things too is that because the conditions in the tundra there are so harsh, they don't roll the rocket out to the launch pad until the day before the launch. So the day before the launch, we got to watch them roll the rocket out on a train, and they stand it up. It comes out on a flatbed, like a flatbed train car, and laying horizontally. And then once it gets out to the launch pad, they stand it up with a crane. So we got to film all of that and watch all of that, and it was just, it was spectacular being there for history. First American, this was the first joint American-Russian event since the Apollo-Soyuz mission, which was in '75, I believe. So it was a pretty historic event. Tons of VIP press there, and a lot of American astronauts. Bonnie Dunbar, who would later go on to be on the shuttle, she was there. She was actually standing right next to me during the launch. So anyway, so here's the interesting thing. We're 20 seconds away from our next 4-minute exposure coming in, and then I promise I'm not going to hold you in suspense any longer. I will get to the story during the next 4-minute exposure, but I want to wait 10 seconds here, and we've got an image coming in. And let's see what this adds to our image quality here. All right, so we're at 20 minutes now. Definitely darkening up that the darker parts of the image and bringing out a lot more of that wispy detail. I just love this effect in this area right here. Okay, so the day after the launch, we're taken to this huge hangar And inside the hangar, it was the most bizarre looking thing in the world. It actually looked exactly like our space shuttle. It's called the Buran, B-U-R-A-N. They built an exact copy of our space shuttle. The only difference was that their space shuttle flew one time only, and it flew unmanned. And they had one successful launch. It orbited a few times, and it came in and it landed. And that was economically, I think it just wasn't a viable thing for them. They just wanted to, I guess, I don't know if they stole our plans and built it. I mean, it was the exact same shuttle, down to everything, down to the tiles. This is my prop. So because they weren't flying, I'll show them again in a second, because they weren't flying the shuttle any longer, it had just been stored in this hangar for years and years and years. It flew in I believe the early 90s, and yeah, someone probably did sell our specs, or they stole them. It was so identical. I'll have to, maybe for another broadcast, pull up some of my photos that I took on the journey, and you can see what a 30-year younger version of me looks like, or a 25-year younger version of me looks like. But they had a couple of older women sitting at a folding table, and I saw these stacks of black and white on either side of them, and there were about 15 or 20 people on the tour, and I saw people start lining up at this table, and I'm like, what's going on over there? I mean, I'm standing underneath the Russian space shuttle, just in awe. I'm standing right in front of the front landing gear. And then the producer says, hey, you need to get over there quick. So I run over to the table, and they're selling, these were the spare tiles, because if you're familiar with the space shuttle, almost every time it flew into space, it lost a tile or two, or 20, usually from non-critical locations or whatever. So they always had spare tiles. And so this is actually one of the tiles. It is super, super light because it's made out of, what is it made out of? It's made out of glass, I believe. It's there's a name for it, and now I'm drawing a complete blank on it. But they were selling them. They were selling the black tiles because they're larger for $20, and they were selling the white tiles for $10. And you can see each one of them has a special, like a serial number on it, because this tile is specially made to go in one specific location. It'll only fit in one location on the shuttle. The serial number on the black tile is kind of worn out, but you can just make it out up there. But yeah, so these are actual Russian space shuttle tiles that I was able to buy off the table. The shuttle only flew once, though, and these were the backup tiles. So when we were walking around the shuttle, you could see missing tiles, and I can only imagine that these were the tiles that were supposed to go in those spots if they ever decided to fly it a second time. But they set back there on my shelf. I don't know if you can see them. They're here and here. My camera went all blurry. Focus, camera, focus. Oh. So that's my my Russia story. I'm gonna go back to the desktop here, so you don't have to keep looking at my ugly face. Let's see, where are we at here? All right, we are just chugging along here. It says, oh, I think it's because it was doing a dither, and that's why. Let's see what kind of detail we can pull out of this guy. So Gordon hasn't chimed in lately, but Gordon, what do you think about the Horsehead live stacking in SharpCapPro? Pretty impressive, isn't it? I mean, it is to me. one of these days I'm going to rotate my camera 180 degrees so that when I do one of these live streams, the Horsehead will actually be right side up. I may do that before the next broadcast. Of course, I'll have to reshoot my flats if I do that, so maybe not. I leave my camera attached to the telescope, and the focuser is locked down good and tight, including the rotation, so I can break down and set up multiple times and not have to worry about redoing flats every single time. Yeah, that story is probably my most interesting astronomy story. I've got UFO stories too. They're not really UFO stories. They were UFOs until we identified what they were. And then they were no longer UFOs. They were, I guess you would call them IFOs, identified flying objects. Yeah, you definitely need to get out in the nighttime with what kind of nighttime rig do you have? And I guess solar. I think was it you that said you had a LUNT, or are you using one of the? I can't remember the other external HA thing. Yeah, UFOs. Most UFOs. With a little common sense can become IFOs. There's a few though. I mean, I've seen a few things that we couldn't really identify them. I didn't think of them as little green men from far off planets. But I do know people that swear that they have, seen things that can't be explained. I've spent tons of time out in the desert and up in the mountains and under dark skies, and have yet to find any aliens come and visit me. I wish they would. I'd love to say hello. We went to... I've got a sneeze coming on here, so I may have to pause for a moment and sneeze. And I guess, of course, it's going to pass now that I mention it. A friend of mine and I were camping at a place called 80 millimeter Explore Scientific on the Atlas Mount, ZWO 16 camp. Oh, so you've got almost the same rig I do. Smaller scope, but you've got the same camera. You've got beta filters as well. Okay, I used to belong to this UFO group here. I stayed near Groom Lake. Okay, all right. Well, you see, staying at Groom Lake almost positively would tell you that anything that you see out there most likely is military, top secret military stuff that they're fooling around with, usually in the evening or at dusk or dawn. And so I don't really, if I see something strange out in that part of the country, I can't really say it's a UFO. I've got to say it's something coming from that base. Let's see, we have another exposure that just came through. So we're coming up on, we're just past the 28-minute mark. So the closest thing I've come to seeing to spotting a UFO is my buddy and I were camping at the Berlin Ichthyosaur State Park. Incredible dark sky site. We were there I've been there several times, but I'm trying to remember what year this happened. I want to say 2018, August of 2018. And let's see, the camp guys make themselves... Oh yeah, they definitely make themselves known. Yeah. Let's see, same setup with it. The Daystar chromosphere. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. It's either LUNT or the Daystar, are the two main products out there. I'm sure there's probably a couple other lesser known ways of doing hydrogen alpha on the sun. Groom Lake in July. That had to be hot. Yeah, because I don't think the altitude's very high there. But anyway, Berlin Ichthyosaur State Park, the campsites are at 7,600 feet. So even in August when we were there, we went there for the Perseid meteor shower. and the night times were downright chilly. Yeah. Oh, you went to the Berlin Ichthyosaur in July. Yeah, yeah. That's a great place to be, to camp in the summertime. Yeah, because you can get away from all the valley heat here. So, no, okay. Am I confusing you, or were you just asking if I was pronouncing it right, or if it's the Berlin Ichthyosaur State Park? Yeah, just like that. Yeah, if you Google that state park, you'll find it. It's an old ghost town. The town of Berlin was a gold mine back in the 1800s, I believe, and so there's some very cool old structures there. But we were set up one night, and we were waiting for sunset. The sun had just gone down. The western horizon was still lit up, and on this particular night, we knew that Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, Mars, basically all the major planets were just in a string along the ecliptic, and we're looking around, and I see this object to the northwest that's just coming out of the light, but it's really, really bright, but it's not moving, and it's not blinking or anything like that, and it's as bright as Venus at its brightest. And we noticed that it just appeared to be hovering there. I went there. Oh, you got photos of Comet Neowise. Very nice. Yeah, that would have been a good place to be. I don't think I ever really left the valley other than to go out to Lake Mead and up to Mount Charleston for Comet Neowise. So anyway, we're looking at this object. It's brighter than Venus, and it's just hovering on the western horizon. And we watched it for probably 15 minutes or so, and it was just getting brighter and brighter and brighter, and it looked like it was moving towards us. So we're sitting there, and we're just watching it, and my buddy had a pair of binoculars, and he's looking at it in binoculars and can't really make out anything. And then I'm thinking, well, wait a second. I've got this telescope set up. Let's point the telescope at it and figure out what it is. We were just doing visual. We weren't even imaging. And so I pointed the telescope at it, and suddenly it became an identified flying object. We could immediately tell that it was a weather balloon. So that's my UFO that became an IFO over the course of about a 30-minute period. We could see it in enough detail through the telescope because it was coming towards us that you could see the instrument payload thing hanging down below the balloon itself. So it was pretty cool to watch. We watched it until the sun stopped reflecting off of it, and it sort of disappeared on us. This was right around the time that all the big fires, I think the Camp Fire was going on in California. And so they were launching, I'm sure, weather balloons every day, probably multiple weather balloons every day to monitor the forest fires. And so that's what was going on there. All right, we're at 32 minutes. 32 minutes of exposure time on the Horsehead. If I had just shut my big mouth, I probably would have stopped this at about the 30-minute mark. But we got a 3-minute exposure coming in here, and then I think I'm going to probably... Well, we're 3 minutes away from the next 4-minute exposure. So we'll go ahead and give it this 36 minutes total time here and call it a night on the Horsehead. So I need to be thinking about our next target. Let's see. Let's get over to real time here. I'm almost tempted to go to the Rosette. The Rosette's up here somewhere, right? The Rosette, I shot, I think the last time we did one of these broadcasts for the first time. You know what? Let me look. Yvette wants to see galaxies. Let me see if M81 and M82 are clearing my house yet. I don't think they are. How long is it going to take? Let's see. M81, M82 is a good twin. Oh, it is. It's right there. So it should be clear my roof. We'll go to this next. I love the rosette too, but you know what? I don't want to spend any more time on the rosette in my backyard. I want to get some really good data on that from a dark sky location during a new moon to really make a finished product out of it. So this is, you know what? We're going to let this last exposure come in here in about 90 seconds, and we'll call it quits on the Horsehead. We'll switch back over to our luminance filter, the clear filter, and we'll go do M81, M82. This is 2 of Charles Messier's objects that were probably discovered on the same night, or cataloged on the same night, I should say. And one of them is nickname is the Cigar Galaxy because it looks like a hand-rolled cigar, and the other one is a sort of, it's not an edge-on spiral galaxy, and it's not a face-on. It's sort of like halfway between edge-on and halfway between face-on. Beautiful, decent size for the sensor framing that we've got here, so it'll be a nice little combo that we can do some time on. All right, we're about 30 seconds away from finishing up here on the Horsehead. Unless somebody's got another suggestion besides M81, M82. Thanks, Gordon. Great to have you join in tonight. Love having the company, and thanks for sticking around for so long. Looking forward to doing our little event. Here comes our final image for the Horsehead. All right. So let's do the auto stretch, and then I like to kind of tweak it a little bit more. I think auto stretch makes it a little bit too dark. All right, I like that. Let's see if I can push the midtones up just a little bit more. I like keeping this area black, but I also like being able to bring out a little more detail in here. So we're going to pause this. I'm going to save that exactly as seen. And we'll open up. So that's our finished image of the Horsehead for the night. 36 minutes of exposure time there, folks. Or 2,160 seconds. All right. So let's turn live stacking off. Let me go back to hydrogen alpha. Let me change my dark filter back to, I'm going to do a 60-second, let's see, dark. I've got a 60-second dark. I'm going to change my flat back to luminance. And for now, I'm going to crank the gain up and bring my exposure time down to like 2 seconds. All right, I'll stop guiding. We're going to move over to M81, M82 now. Stop guiding. Okay, stopped. And we're going to go to M81, M82. And we'll keep an eye on our telescope. It's going to stay on the same side of the meridian, so I shouldn't have any issues with cable snags or anything like that. Love to be a fly on the star closest. Well, if you were on the star closest to it, you would be a fried fly. maybe on a planet orbiting the star closest to the Horsehead Nebula. That would be a safer place for a fly to be, I believe. All right, so we're in position. We're going to go back to, oh, we can already see our object for the night. So this is M81, and this is the Cigar Galaxy M82. So I am going to bump that over just a little bit, hopefully in the right direction. Oh. want to get these guys centered up. The thing that's nice about these two is because of the angle of the rotation of my camera, I can zoom in while it's live stacking here and do a pretty tight crop on it. So let's go to 60 seconds. All right, so we got everything set here. 60 seconds. Gain is back to normal. I already set to luminance filter, and I've set my darks and flats. So I will start guiding once again. And that way SharpCap will stack. Yeah, I think you're going to be impressed with this, Yvette. This is a pretty cool looking object once it gets a little data stacked on it. So let's clear out this and clear out that and reset everything back to 0. We're about 5 seconds away from our first 60-second exposure on M81, M82. Oh, a nice dramatic pause in the music there as it switches tracks. Huh. What happened? It did not stack. I'm wondering if I had not started guiding up yet. It is guiding now, but maybe because it didn't start guiding until midway through the exposure, it did not accept that first one. All right, so we'll give it another minute here and see how things come in. Guiding is really pretty good right now. You're always looking at this total RMS number in the bottom left-hand corner here. It's at 0.60 right now. Anything below like 0.9 is pretty decent for the image scale that I'm imaging here. So that's looking pretty good. Let's see. Coming up on 5 seconds here. First exposure coming through now. Oh! Last 2 frames have not been stacked because live stacking is paused. Oh, come on. Live stacking is not paused. Clear. Let's turn this off and start it up again. We're wasting precious time here. So it should be running now, because if I pause it, it says resume. So this tells me that it's running. Sorry about that. The suspense will hold you. 20 seconds. So, Yvette, question. Are you friends with Jorge? Is that how you found me, or is it just totally random that you two guys, you and Jorge were online with me on that previous broadcast together? Okay, I'm not liking something here. It says that it ignored it again. Let me check. I am definitely guiding. So something weird is happening here. I'm on the luminance filter. I'm doing 60-second exposures. Yes, you guys are friends. Okay, good. Jorge's a great guy. He helped me with a little issue I had with my vehicle one day. Just out of the goodness of his heart. He's a truly good guy. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening. What's happening? 60-second darks and luminance flat. That's right. So we got 8 seconds until the next thing comes in, and then I'm going to bail on this and bail on live stacking, and nope, it did not stack again. It keeps telling me that live stack is paused. Okay. You belong to the same astronomy group. Oh, is that the Facebook group that you're talking about? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to close SharpCap because something is not right here. So I'm going to close SharpCap. and I'm going to relaunch it because I am guiding. And let me get everything reconnected here, and we will give this a shot again. Connect to my camera. Takes it a second. Alright, so everything connected. Cooler is on. It's cooling down to -10. That'll take a minute or two, but I don't know what's happening. So connection to PH2 guiding succeeded. Okay, so let's see if 20 seconds from now we get an exposure here. Yeah, I'm not on Facebook, so I know I'm missing out. Not. Just don't really like Facebook. Yeah, he is a wheeler and a dealer when it comes to finding deals on used equipment and secondhand stuff. Jorge and I and a couple of other people are on a private WhatsApp astrophotography group chat, and he's always talking about the new gear that he's found. He's definitely a wheeler and a dealer. Here we go. Okay, there's our first exposure coming in. 60 seconds. All right. Now we're stacking. And this is what I was saying, is because they're sort of in a horizontal line with each other, I can actually zoom in pretty close to these so we can see pretty good detail in them. Because we don't really care about anything else other than these two galaxies. So this is M81, also called Bode's Nebula, because they used to think this was a nebula and not a galaxy. And then this is M82, the Cigar Galaxy. So he's setting you up with an Ioptron. Do you know the model? Is it just the star tracker for a camera lens combo, or is it an actual telescope equatorial mount? Because I have an Ioptron. I have the EQ25. It's the little bitty lightweight one. I love that mount. It's a great mount. I know he has a bigger one. Let's see, our second exposure's come in. Okay, yeah, Ioptron makes a good star tracker. Yeah, you can just start to make out the spiral shape on M81 here. You've got one very distinct arm coming out on this side, and then you've got another one coming out on this side. And as more images stack, we'll start seeing even more detail in there. Not a lot of detail comes out in the Cigar Galaxy, not with these short exposures, but if we had dark skies and I could do 5-minute exposures, there's actually these jets that pop out on either side, making it look almost like a cross. All right. It is going to take a few exposures to start cleaning up this background and making it a little darker, especially because I'm doing 60-second exposures. I'm now pointing out, the telescope is pointing roughly in the direction of Nellis, North Las Vegas area, so I am definitely getting into the light pollution over there, but it's rising. It's getting a little bit higher as the minutes go by here too. So yeah, if you Google M81, M82 and see some really highly detailed color images of this pair here, it's an amazing photo that you can get out of these two. Really, I need a little bit more focal length, a little longer focal length telescope to get these targets here. They're fairly small. It's just kind of cool because you can get two of them at the same time. So, all right. So there's another exposure that just popped in. I noticed the background get just a little bit darker. And let's see. While we wait for that. See, here's look at this picture here. This is just amazing. Not my picture, but oh, I was kind of hoping I could there we go. That is a incredible picture of the same image that I'm working on right now. So just to give you an idea of what a little more focal length is capable of on this object, and a lot of time and patience and processing. But you can see the shapes. So it's just kind of cool that you can actually image these from the city. There is a little bit of hydrogen alpha data in these two. Actually, when I switch to hydrogen alpha, you can actually almost start to make out clumps in the arms. That is a fantastic question. There's no such thing as a true color. I say there's no such thing because you know, even if you have a color camera and you took a picture of this, and I have one particular color camera that's maybe a Sony sensor, and then somebody shoots it with a color camera that has a Panasonic sensor, the colors aren't going to be the same. They're not going to be identical. And then when you shoot with a monochrome camera and you shoot through multiple filters, it's really it's sort of art. It's like a, you know, you look at a painting and look at Van Gogh's Starry Night. Is that color of that sky really the right color? No, he just made that color up, or got as close to what he remembered seeing as possible. And that's kind of the way astrophotography is too. There's no color chip chart that you can compare to, because nobody knows what the real color of these faint distant objects are. At least that's my understanding. I mean, you can shoot with a regular color camera, or you can shoot with a monochrome camera, shoot RGB. You're going to get a fairly accurate representation of what it looks like in color. But most of the images of nebulas and stuff that we look at, they're shot with narrowband filters, which are not even perceivable with the naked eye. So let's go out to full frame here and see. Yeah, if you look carefully, you can kind of see this side of the picture is much brighter than this side. This side looks darker. This is called a gradient. And what's causing this gradient, I'm almost 100% sure, is the moon. The moon is down in this direction here, and it's shining onto this side of the sensor. Or maybe it's vice versa, and it's hitting this side of the sensor. But either way, the moon really wreaks havoc on a subject like this. It almost looks like this lower right third of the image is cloudy, and it's not. That's a gradient caused by moonlight reflection, because we're shooting with a regular luminance filter. So I'm looking out my window, my front window, and I can see the moon rising right now. So pretty sure that's where that gradient is coming from. Not a great night to be shooting. Not a great night to be shooting this particular subject because of its location in the sky. If we go back to the planetarium program, you can see, okay, so this is north here, so I'm looking towards the northeast, and if I perhaps turn my change the landscape here and change it to something that's flat and generic and get rid of my house. Okay, so this is where, close that. This is where we're looking. If I zoom out and show the horizon and then come over here, there's the moon. So that's the moon coming in at an angle that's causing this gradient in this picture here. Still kind of a cool thing to look at, though. I don't think I'm going to spend a great deal more time because I'm not going to be able to get rid of that gradient. Not with just SharpCap live stack here. I need to go back and turn my house on so that I can see the obstructions that I have. So we know the moon is down this way behind the house, so we probably want to try to find something over in this part of the sky. So this is the opposite part of the sky. Seems like there's a lot there, but I don't know how much of this would be too great to look at. Did we look at M33 Triangulum Galaxy? I don't think we did we? That's going to be in a pretty decent, and that's a, you know what, that's a good target. Let's stop. I wanted you to see these two galaxies side by side here because they make a really interesting pair here. But I'm going to go ahead and pause this. I'm going to do a stretch with a histogram and try to get the best picture out of this that I can. Wow, that's ugly. I'm not even saving that. That's gross. I am going to go to hydrogen alpha. Okay, hydrogen alpha. I'm going to change my dark to 180 seconds. I'm going to change my flat to hydrogen alpha. I'm going to crank up my gain here and do a real short exposure so we can see what we're looking at. You can still see the two galaxies here in these very short exposures. I'm going to turn guiding off now, and we're going to go to M33. Alright, so we're going to do a meridian flip here. I need to keep an eye on the telescope once again. Make sure there's no cable snags out there. Yeah, we did not go to M33. Gordon wanted to see the Horsehead Nebula, and I think it was when you stepped away for a break earlier. So, alright, I think we're going to be clearing the bushes here. Boy, cutting it kind of close. We'll see. Let's see. I'm going to do a quick plate solve here because I don't think we centered on it. Sometimes when I do a meridian flip, my tracking is not quite perfect enough to do. Oh, I know what I need to do. I need to lower my gain here because I'm picking up a lot of noise, and do like a 4-second exposure on this in order to plate solve. So let's stop that. Cancel. Yeah, let's do another plate solve. Well, it usually happens almost. Oh, there it goes. It took a little bit of time there. Only 0.1 degree off, 0.01 degree off. So I would imagine if I crank up my gain, we should be able to see the galaxy right in the middle of the frame here. Or maybe, oh, you know what? I switched to hydrogen alpha, so that's why it's so faint. So we got to put some time on this baby. What did I decide we were going to do? 2-minute exposures, right? Where are we at? 180 seconds. Okay, we'll go 180 then. We'll reset our gain to 139. And we'll go 180 seconds. And we'll get guiding going here so that SharpCap stacks. Okay. Boy, talk about guiding on the edge. Look how close to the edge of the sensor they chose that star to pick. Oh well, it knows what it's doing. PH2 connection guiding succeeded. I need to reset my histogram there and here and clear everything out. I don't normally just ramble like this. If I didn't have a live audience here, I wouldn't be talking at all. I would just be doing this in my head. All right, so we're waiting on our first 3-minute exposure to come in here. Although it does help for me to actually say it out loud because I have so many things I have to remember to set. All right. Still got a little over a minute and a half to go here. Yeah, we all ramble, I believe, a little bit to ourselves. I've got 2 big dogs in the house, so I always say that I'm talking to them when in fact I'm probably talking to myself most of the time. All right, a minute away for our first exposure. This is going to be probably a little more than a third, between a third and half the size of the Andromeda Galaxy that we were looking at earlier. So it's pretty decent size. It's considerably larger than M81 and 82 that we were just looking at together. And I'm shooting in hydrogen alpha because there's a lot of hydrogen alpha data in this galaxy, which is not in a lot of galaxies. All right, we're 20 seconds away. Hopefully we don't get the infamous frame ignored, could not stack warning here. Oh, no, we got an image here. Let me stretch it. Huh. It's a little bit off-center, but you can definitely see the spiral. I'll leave it this way since we've already framed everything up. So this is M33 in the constellation Triangulum. It's if you go outside at night, I mean, you can make out Triangulum. It's 3 stars. These 2 stars here are pretty close to the same brightness. This one's a little bit fainter. Fairly easy to make out, though. It's a very tiny constellation. I'm trying to see if there's any like really obvious landmarks that you could go outside right now and look towards the west to see it. If you knew the sky well enough to be able to find the Andromeda Galaxy, but you're not going to be able to see that naked eye from the city. You have to have some dark skies for that. But if you've got one of those apps that connects with your GPS and tilt sensor on your phone, you could probably find it fairly easy. Looking over in this part of the sky to see. Let's see how much more time we have. We still got about 1 minute and 40 seconds to go, so I don't know how long we'll spend on the Triangulum galaxy here, so I'm looking for our next object. And I want to kind of keep it over in roughly this part of the sky. All of these little red ovals that show up are galaxies, but they're extremely faint for the most part. I have shot the Heart and Soul Nebula before, but again, not very... You can see the framing with my sensor. I guess we could go to that. That would show up pretty decently. It'd be better if the camera was rotated 90 degrees. The Heart Nebula is really, really big here. That's a nice little... Oh, that's the double cluster. This is in the constellation Perseus, the double cluster there. So that could be a possibility for us later. All right, we're about 20 seconds away or so from our second exposure coming in. And we'll start to see some of the spiral detail in M33 start to pop out here. All right, so we've got our second exposure in. This is 6 minutes of time now, and you can see the core of the galaxy here, and you can trace the spiral arms as they come out. There's one of them there. There's one that goes out this way. There's another one that comes out over here. So it's a pretty cool galaxy when you look at really long exposure, highly detailed images of this galaxy. This is something that's going to take some time, though. We're going to just have to be patient here. It's really going to take probably, well, I'm hoping that I have, you can see where the telescope is pointed versus the bushes here. I'm hoping that we have 15 more minutes. This is kind of an odd angle because this camera is setting down really low on the ground. I think we've got at least 15 more minutes of time before M33 goes behind the bushes here, so we should be good. It's going to take a good 10-15 minutes of total time to start to really make out some detail. I'm kind of curious what this is. I bet I can go to... Oh, I can tell you what that is. That is Sirius. That's the dog star. That's probably because I'm just starting to make out Orion. You can see Orion's belt right here. There's Betelgeuse, which is the upper left shoulder, and then this is Rigel, which is the right foot of Orion. So I never have noticed stars in this little baby monitor camera that I've got. I'm surprised that it actually picks them up, but you can clearly make out Orion's belt there. You can even make out the Orion Nebula right here. That's pretty impressive. So this would be Sirius, the dog star. My first dog was named after this star right here. My current dogs are Sagan, named after Carl Sagan, famous astrophysicist, popular with the TV series, the PBS TV series Cosmos. And my other dog's name is Titan, and he's coming over to see why I'm saying his name. It's okay, boy. Not Orion, question mark. I'm not sure what you mean. That I didn't name my dog Orion? Is that what you're asking? Oh, your first photo. Your first photo was Orion, yeah. Let's see. We've got, coming up on 4 seconds here, so we'll have another 3 minutes of exposure time stacking here in a moment. Did it not stack? Why did it not stack? I hate when it does that. We wasted 3 minutes. All right, so we're looking here. We've got 2 minutes for a total of 2 exposures for a total of 6 minutes. And so we will we'll wait another 2 minutes, 20 seconds or so, and hopefully this next stack comes in and it actually does stack, because we really need to have some time in order to see any kind of detail in M33 here. But we can continue. Oh, I pressed the wrong button. We're launching Nina. I don't need Nina open right now. Nina is the astrophotography capture software that I use whenever I'm in the field. So I'm going to close that when I'm not trying to do a live stack and screen share things live to an audience like this. I meant to go back to Stellarium to see what else we could go to after we finish. God, there's a cluster of galaxies right here that's just intense. What is this? Huh. There's a lot of galaxies right there. Each one of those red ovals is a galaxy. Oh, I know what we could go to next. We could go to the California Nebula. My framing is not going to be great, but this is the California Nebula because if you looked at it the other way around, it actually kind of is shaped like the state of California. I'm sure that's not the original official name of it. Yeah, this is kind of a cool object. It's a hydrogen alpha object too, and since we're already there, since we're already relatively close by. Where are we right now? Oh, we're down here. So yeah, this will put us up a little bit higher in the sky, which would be a good thing. And we could also look at the Pleiades. The Pleiades looks great. It only takes a couple of minutes of exposure on that to really start showing the nebulosity. Kind of boring in black and white, but your choice, the Pleiades or the California Nebula. Yvette, I think you're the only one with me tonight, so you get to pick. Let's go back and see where we're at. Alright, so we have some stacking issues here. It is for some reason not stacking any longer. I don't know what's going on with the stack there. Because we just had another 3-minute exposure blow by without stacking, so we've only got a total of 6 on this. But kind of disappointing, but you can definitely make it out. I think what I'm going to have to do, I don't know any other way to do this though, is close SharpCap and start it up again. The Pleiades it is. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do this now. I'm going to go ahead and close. I'm going to stop guiding here. I'm going to relaunch SharpCap. Reconnect everything. The Pleiades is a mostly reflection nebula, so we'll go back to luminance for that, and we'll do 60-second exposures on it. Luminance. Make sure I'm on the luminance filter. Yes. Crank up my gain and turn the exposure down so I can do some framing automatically. Oh. Okay, let's go to the Pleiades. You can see the mount moving, coming up to it. Alright, so it should be settling in now. Alright, so there's the Pleiades. I like that framing. We'll just go ahead and leave that as it is, and we will change our exposure to 60 seconds. Let's start live stacking again, and hopefully we're going to get PhD is not available or not guiding. Okay, well, I see that warning. That's because I had stopped it earlier. And start guiding. There we go. PhD 2 is guiding again. Stacking resumed. Excellent. You're very welcome. Let's see, we've got about 20 seconds before our first 1 minute exposure comes through. Totally on the opposite side of the sky from the moon, so we should not get any gradient like we were getting with M81 and M82 earlier. And we've got about 5 seconds before our first image comes in. And hopefully we don't have any stacking issues this time around since I restarted SharpCap. Not sure what's causing that, but all right. Already starting to see the nebulosity around. This is a beautiful image when it's shot in color. Beautiful target when it's shot in color, but I believe this star's name is Merope, and this is called the Merope nebulosity area. It's either this one or this one is called Merope, because these are the two stars that have the most nebulosity around it. The whole area is very, very covered in a cloudy, bluish, cloudy nebula area. All right, so we're 15 seconds away from seeing if our stacking is going to work properly this time around. Here it comes. Oh, there we go. So we got 120 seconds now, two exposures. So we'll start darkening this up. So far so good. We got 2 good stacks, or 1 stack. Yeah, it's always exciting when things work exactly the way they're supposed to work. Again, this is a target that if the camera was rotated 90 degrees, we would be able to get a little better framing on it. Although we do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is the 7 stars that make up the Pleiades. The other nickname for the Pleiades is the 7 Sisters. So we are managing to squeeze all 7 of them in there. Let's see, we just had another stack come in. I'm going to fool around with a histogram here and try to get some more detail out of it. So all of these objects that I've been showing you tonight, like normally if I was trying to get what I as a photographer, when you have like the perfect print, it's called wall worthy, as in worthwhile printing and hanging on the wall. So it's wall worthy. If you're trying to do these type of objects, there are guys that will spend literally night after night after night shooting the same subject for hours on end. And so why is it called the 7 Sisters? I don't know exactly where the nickname the 7 Sisters come from, but I do have an interesting bit of trivia regarding the 7 Sisters. If you've ever seen the emblem, some people call it the Tiny Dipper because it's smaller than the Little Dipper. But if you've ever seen a Subaru, the automobile, the Subaru, and you look at the emblem on the front or the back of the car, it is 6 stars. And that is because at the time that the the Japanese nicknamed this constellation Subaru, they could only see 6 of the 7 stars. So in Japan, if you mentioned the Pleiades, they wouldn't have a clue what you were talking about. But because they call this constellation Subaru. So next time you look at a Subaru automobile, look at the logo. Unfortunately, it's a very artistic rendering, and so the stars aren't in the same like relative position to each other as they are on here. But you can't wait to get to wall-worthy status. Yeah, believe it or not, I have only one astrophoto hanging on my wall. And it's a wide-field image of the Perseid meteor shower that was taken with my DSLR on a tripod. It wasn't even on a tracker. It was a 20 or a 25-second exposure. But I happened to catch a Perseid meteor going right through the Sagittarius portion of the Milky Way, and so it turned out to be a beautiful image. And I did have that. I have that one printed fairly large, like 16 by 20. Yeah, so if you're part Japanese, then yeah, it's something, a little interesting tidbit of trivia there regarding the 7 sisters. We've got pretty good stack going. So far we haven't, the telescope does something called dithering. Let's see what my dithering is set for. Dither interval every 120 seconds, and we're doing 60-second exposures. So after every 2 exposures, the camera will pause recording, and the mount will actually move just a tiny little bit. And what that does is that helps the stacking of the image get rid of some background noise that's inherent in the camera sensor itself. So if you did not dither and the camera and the telescope is guiding really well, if there's any noise, like let's say this star right here was actually noise, it would just get really bright because that noise would stay in the same location. But by dithering, or it's like jiggling the camera around a little bit, it moves the noise to a different location in the image, and over the course of stacking, it sort of subtracts that noise automatically, I should say. So let's go back to our histogram and do another stretch here. Our background sky is definitely getting darker. I'm loving that. Yeah, so the way the dithering works, if we go to PhD, you can see the graph here. You can see where it says that it dithered, because it just did it after it finished that last exposure. So what it did is on the declination axis, it purposely did a large bump and forced the telescope to move in the declination axis, which this let's see, north. So this would have moved the mount to the south a little bit, and it bumped it, and then it automatically adjusts the guiding too, and it just starts over wherever it bumped to. It starts the guiding once again. Our guiding is not looking great right now. 1.16. If you remember, I was saying 0.9 or lower is good. So our guiding is sort of all over the place tonight, but I don't worry about guiding anymore. If the stars are round and they look okay, that's all I'm concerned about. All right, we've got 9 minutes of stack here. I'm probably going to go about 15 minutes or so on the Pleiades here before I decide to punch on out and go to another object. We might be getting close to the end of our broadcast evening, folks. Let's see, what else can we look at? So this is where we're looking right now. So what's over in this area? Oh, you know what? Anytime I'm near the Pleiades, I know that I'm near the Crab Nebula. So if you want to see the remnants of a supernova that exploded in, I think it was the year 1054, the Chinese and the Japanese astronomers of the day actually documented the explosion of this star, and it was so bright that it could be seen during the daytime if you knew where to look in the sky. And it lasted like that for quite a while before the supernova finally faded out. And then what is left behind is the remnants of it, which is the Crab Nebula. So let's see where. I'm trying to figure out. I'm kind of like backwards here. I'm so used to looking at all this stuff in the east. Here's the super duper easy way to do it. Just search for M1. Oh, you're very welcome. Yeah, take care of Puppy Dog, that's for sure. And we'll see you next time around. Apparently you get the notifications that I'm going live. So I am going to go to the Crab Nebula here in a moment. That is right here. And this is a supernova remnant. So you got time if you want to take the dog out. Luckily we have a dog door, so they go out and take care of business whenever they need to, but I totally understand the need to take care of the little guy or girl. We're gonna... Betelgeuse, you want to see Betelgeuse? It's just a star, but I will point to it for you. It's a red star, but of course with a monochrome camera all we're going to see is a little bright light, a little bright point of light. We're not going to see anything else. I think we should go to the Crab Nebula next. In fact, we're past the 11-minute mark here. I'm gonna go ahead and pause this. Yeah, we're all waiting for Betelgeuse to explode. Let's do a histogram stretch here. Okay, let's save that. And there's our picture of the Pleiades for tonight. 11 minutes exposure time. Let's turn off live stacking. And let's go to the Crab Nebula. I've got to stop guiding. Okay. The Crab Nebula is one of those small targets, but we can zoom in on it pretty good. Yeah, I'm sorry our conversation gets so strange here because I don't understand because our conversation is delayed via text here, but yeah, I got what you're saying now. All right, we are going to crank up gain and lower exposure time and see if we can see the crab. And there's the crab right dead center of our I'm going to shoot this in hydrogen alpha though. I'm going to shoot it in hydrogen alpha. And I'm going to change my exposure time to, let's go with I'm going to go with 240 seconds because this is has a lot of really incredible detail in it. And we're going to change this to hydrogen alpha. So we are well on our way to our first 4-minute exposure on the Crab Nebula here. Okay. Guiding is going, PH2 connection is going, clear everything here, clear our histogram, and we've got about 3 minutes, which is time for me to take a quick bathroom break, and I guess you're going to probably tune out, so I'll be coming back to do some time on the Crab Nebula here shortly. We'll watch the first image come in together. Alright, I am back, and we are 1 minute away from our first 3-minute exposure on the Crab Nebula. I didn't stop to think about where... we're still far enough away from the moon. The moon's coming up over in this direction. I don't think we should have too much of a bad gradient from the moonlight here. 30 seconds away. I believe I'm going to probably do, let's see, it is 9:25 local time here. I am probably going to do about maybe 30 minutes total time on the Crab Nebula here, depending on what this first 3-minute exposure shows me. And then I would be calling it quits. Oh, that looks pretty good so far. I'm liking what I'm seeing. So we might stick it out with the Crab Nebula here for a while, at least 30 minutes or so. So I'll probably be ending the broadcast around 10 p.m. tonight. But I am going to step away for a moment and grab a little snack. So I will mute my microphone and turn the music up, and you guys just enjoy enjoy the live preview of the live stack here of the Crab Nebula as it comes in real time. I'm going to zoom in on it for you. Of course, we had a satellite go right through the exposure there. Pretty decent amount of detail there in the Crab Nebula. This is a supernova remnant from the year 1054, I believe, is the date. Somewhere in that ballpark. Alright guys, I shall return. Enjoy the music. So, Yvette is asking, what is the line in the middle here? That is a faint satellite that passed through the frame during the exposure. So that's what that happens to be. And we have about 5 seconds away until our second 4-minute exposure comes in. So that this might help to get rid of that a little bit. Actually, it generally takes about 4 or 5 exposures before the satellite will start fading out. Alright, so there we're looking at 2 4-minute exposures. Alright, I'm back. I needed to take a little break there for a moment, but I'm back. We're in the process of stacking 4-minute exposures on the Crab Nebula here. We've got a total of 4 exposures stacked right now for 16 minutes. You can see in the bottom left-hand side of our software here. This gives us all of our information here. This is a live stack with a monochrome camera on the Crab Nebula M1 in the constellation Taurus, I believe. Yes. And it's a pretty decent looking night tonight. There's not hardly any wind at all. Of course, we've got a waning moon that's up high in the sky right now, but I don't think I'm even getting any gradient or anything from. No, it's looking pretty clean right now. So this is the full frame here. We were just enjoying the zoomed in to 100% version of the Crab Nebula here. I think it looks best at about 50% myself, right in there. I've been on the air live since about 6:30 this evening, so I am probably going to be calling it a quits after I get about 30 minutes of data here on the Crab Nebula. Alright, so we're about 15 seconds away from our total time of 20 minutes on exposure here on the Crab Nebula. Excuse me. There we have it. Our 20-minute stack just came through. We'll play around with the histogram a little bit here, see what we can get out of her. I'm really digging the Crab Nebula here tonight, guys. This is looking nice. So a little bit of information about the Crab Nebula. So this is the remnants of a supernova that exploded in the year 1054. It was actually observed by Chinese astronomers in 1054, and it was visible. It was so bright that it was visible during the daytime if you knew exactly where to look in the sky, and it was visible as a supernova for, I believe, I want to say several months. There's not a lot of information here on that. Actually, it says, I'm reading here that according to Chinese records, it reached a peak magnitude of -6, which that's incredibly bright. That's 4 times brighter than Venus at its brightest. So that's amazing. It says it was visible in the daylight for 23 days and could be seen in the night sky for over 600 days. And they've also found petroglyphs in the Navajo Canyon and White Mesa in Arizona, and in the, I believe it's pronounced Chaco Canyon National Park in New Mexico, where there's petroglyphs that appear to show this event, which is really, really amazing. So the remnants of this supernova explosion from the year 1054 was actually first discovered in around 1731 by a gentleman named John Bevis. And then Charles Messier discovered it in 1758. And that's when he was starting his comet searches. And so he was cataloging all these faint fuzzies in the sky that did not move from night to night, because a comet moves its position each night relative to the background stars. But Charles Messier was searching for comets, and he would see these little faint fuzzy patches through his telescope that he thought might be a comet. He would write down the exact location, very detailed star charts that were being hand-drawn, and then he would go back the following night and look at the same little patch of sky. And if that object appeared to be in the same position, he knew that it wasn't a nebula, or no, it wasn't a galaxy, that it was a nebula. And so he just cataloged these. He's got 110 of these objects, and this is the very first one that he cataloged, M1, the Crab Nebula. So something that's kind of interesting about this is what you're looking at is the gas, the outer shell of this star that went supernova, and the remnants of this star, and it's expanding at an incredible rate of speed. And this object was actually photographed as far back as 1892, and it was one of the first faint nebulas. They didn't even know they were galaxies. There were galaxies at the time, but it was one of the fainter nebulas that was photographed, and it's a very, very popular object to photograph. And because of that, there are detailed images of this object going back to the early 1900s, and you can actually compare a photograph of this nebula taken around the turn of the 19th century there, or the turn of the 18th century, I should say, around 1900, and compare it to images taken today, and you can actually see the expansion in these, if I point them out to you, let me zoom in a little closer to you so you can get a better idea. So these little tendrils that sort of spider out away from the center of it, you can actually, if you blink two pictures, an early picture and a more recent picture together, you can actually see the movement, which is pretty cool. I think if you do a little Google search, you'll probably find some of those blinked images that show the differences in the size of the nebula as it's expanding. And of course, as you can imagine, this gas is being ejected from that initial supernova explosion at incredible speeds, but it takes tens, if not hundreds of years to detect this motion because it's so far away. So they just kind of gives you an idea of just how large these objects are and also how far away they are. And there's also a pulsar. When the star went supernova, what was left behind is the pulsar that I want to say it's one of the first pulsars that was discovered. I could be wrong on that though. I'm kind of reading through some notes online here on my tablet to try to find some more details about it. This is a great object to look at visually through a decent-sized telescope as well, because you can make out a lot of the detail in a larger amateur telescope. You can make out a lot of the same things that you can see in this image here. I'm going to back off a little bit. So we're doing 4-minute exposures. We've got a total of 24 stacked right now. And I believe I'm going to be calling it a quits for the evening. Once we reach past the 30-minute mark. So we'll have 28 minutes, so I'll have a 32-minute exposure will be our final exposure for the Crab Nebula. And that's when I'll be probably signing off for the night. Glad you guys could join in on the live action tonight if you were joined in live, or if you're watching the replay. I hope you appreciate the index or the table of contents that I will work on and put down in the bottom there, so if you want to skip to the good parts, and you can skip past all the boring stuff. So reading a few more notes here. Okay, well, I tell you what, I'll hold on until we get to our last 4-minute exposure here, because we got exposure number 28 minutes coming in here in about 5 seconds. Watch the histogram. It'll nudge one way or the other just a little bit here when the next exposure stacks. Just a tiny little bit there on the black side, the left side of the peak down here. You could see it. All right, so let's see what's happening here. We are dithering, which means the telescope is nudging around a little bit here to kind of eliminate some of the sensor noise. And then we will start stacking again. All right, so our next exposure is off and running. So here's some interesting information about the I'm reading here, it says photographs taken decades apart show that the crab is visibly expanding by comparing its angular expansion with the expansion velocity determined by spectroscopy. The nebula's distance has been well determined to be about 6,300 light years from us. And the Crab Nebula has a physical dimension of about 13 by 11 light years in diameter. And it's expanding at 1,800 kilometers per second. That's just incredible. 1,800 kilometers per second. Alright guys, we're about a little over 2 minutes away from our final exposure for the night. We're going to call it quits as soon as this one is done. Alright, so we're closing in on the end of our exposure here. We've got a little over a minute left. Can't see without my readers, but I know the light that I've got lighting myself up here kind of reflects pretty badly off the glass, so that's why I'm trying to go back and forth here. So yeah, we're a little over 1 minute left on this final exposure. And just wanted to say thanks to Yvette, thanks to Gordon, thanks to Mitch, anybody else that joined in and didn't bother to say hello, that's okay. Always love some interaction though. If you don't feel like you can't ask questions or can't make a request when I'm doing events like this, because I'm just here to play around and see what's going on in the night sky tonight. Seems like a perfect time to let our music fade out in between tracks here. I'm going to go ahead and pause that while we start to wrap things up here. We're 30 seconds away from our final exposure. And then we will be calling it quits for the night. Here we go, 10-second countdown till our final image. And here she comes. So this will be a 32-minute exposure on the Crab Nebula tonight, and that's going to be it, guys. I'm going to pause this here. I am going to adjust the histogram just a touch here. Like I said, when I'm doing these images, I'm not doing anything to try to get any like really fantastic APOD type of images or anything like that. I'm just fooling around, doing a little sharing of the night sky with folks. So I don't do any other processing with this. I will just adjust the histogram until I get to where I like it, and I will save that image. I'll open it up to you and show you exactly what it looks like. So that's the full screen image there. And then, of course, the only thing I will do is upload this to Instagram a little bit later and crop it square, maybe crop it in a little bit tighter. But otherwise, that's it. So we're going to call it quits here. And thanks for joining me tonight. I appreciate all the time you guys spent with me. We're going to close out TeamViewer here because that's my other computer outside there. And again, I want to thank Yvette for joining us tonight, Gordon, Mitch. I don't remember if there was anybody else. Oh yeah, there was one other person that joined us for a while. I'm scrolling through my names here. Started with an H. Henke? Or Henk. Henk. Anyway, thanks for joining me tonight. I appreciate it, and I'm going to fade out now and call it a night. Thanks a lot, guys. See you next time.